Hello, Susan Flory back with you. You're going to love this one. Take two in my new The Big Middle Strand, Taking Your Shot. It's a story bang on theme. It'll inspire no end in this age of job insecurity. Pandemic unemployment, we know, is surging. More of us are doing it for ourselves, starting a startup. We're repackaging and repurposing our skills to get off the soul-sucking treadmill of long commutes to jobs that have long sapped our will to live. I didn't have to look far to find Taking Your Shot candidates. I've got Lucas Chambers, a dear friend, a former colleague. He is down the Zoom line from Lausanne. Hello, Lucas.
Hi, Susan. Great to see you again. Down the Zoom line. I like that. Yeah.
Isn't that good? That was deliberate. I wanted to do that because, of course, in Mediaville, Lucas is a journalist, former broadcaster, TV and radio like me. And down the line is the procedure whereby you connect with your guest. Before the digi age, before everything was Zoom, Zoom, Zoom.
What I find funny is that we used to Zoom down the line, and now we're down the Zoom line. So things evolve for sure. And certainly, in my line of work, I've seen a lot of evolution, and that's kind of why I've managed to pull off what you just described, basically to make myself a new job once we both lost ours.
Yeah, so let's indulge a little bit in that shared personal history that we had. We both worked for the English Language Network, a national network of the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation, before they privatized it and they decided, it's the lingua franca English, but it's not one of the four official languages. I always have to explain this to people because they're always so surprised. What? English isn't an official language of Switzerland? So anyway, we worked on a show. You were my designated reporter. I did a 5-day stretch, and one of the shows that I did was called The Business. And I used to call you, Lucas, you're prepared to blush, I used to call you intrepid. Because I would give you, it always seemed like final notice, 3 hours advance notice, to go out to along whatever theme, find the Swiss company that's going to perfectly illustrate whatever point I wanted to editorially. And you would always come back with the goods. So I called you intrepid.
Yeah, it was certainly flattering and inspiring to be called intrepid when you're doing a show called The Business, because it's not, generally speaking, the type of show where you expect an intrepid reporter. But yes, I guess, you sometimes didn't give me a lot of leeway to come up with the stories. And in return, I was always impressed with your industriousness and your dynamic skills behind the microphone. And that's why I called you Wizzy. You used to whiz around, right? You used to whiz around all the way, always back to your desk and back to the studio, and somehow always cool, just to get you right where the show was going to begin. You would be there.
Once the mic opened, away we went. But I love that one day we were building the show, and you had to, for some reason, be cutting your piece. They were normally about 5 minutes. It was all about showcasing Switzerland and all of the innovation that goes on there. It's such an incubator of innovation, as we know. And I remember you were trailing around with me, and I just said, "Don't talk. We have to go here." It would be literally shorthand. And what was lovely about you, unlike so many other people who aren't marinated in the news game, they just think, "Oh my God, she's such a BI. She's so bossy." And it's not bossy. It's time management, isn't it?
That's right. It's efficiency.
Yeah.
No, I was all for it. It was very good. Like, let's get on with it, make it happen, and then we can chat afterwards. It's fine. No, it was good. It's a shame we didn't have more time, really, but it was certainly a fun time. Yeah.
Yeah, we always pulled it off, and it was good. Now, talking about taking your shot and making it happen, tell me what's happened with you, because you have repackaged yourself, but I even want to park that. We just put a pin in that for a minute, and I want to just fill in some of your background, because you've chopped and changed over the years a lot more than a lot of people. I could call you an oceanographer, couldn't I?
Yeah, well, sort of, although I never actually worked a day in the field. I studied oceanography, and I went on a boat and took some samples it was in Howe Sound in British Columbia. And I did actually find it exciting, but really I had a romantic notion of what that was all going to be about. I think when I did oceanography, I was thinking red beret, pipe, wind in the hair on some kind of boat with dolphins leaping. And it really wasn't what oceanography was going to turn out to be like in the working world. When I realized it was going to be about a week or two per year of boat time, and then the rest of the year of lab time, analyzing samples of things called copepods and zooplankton and things like that. I realized that perhaps it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. So this is really when I started traveling, and then traveling led me to some travel writing, because obviously when you travel, you think, how can I make this pay? And then the writing led me to photography, and the photography led me to thinking, well, writing photography, I like watching the news at night. Perhaps journalism might save my career. And so I went into journalism because, I wasn't really able to make travel writing pay. And that's when I got into journalism seriously, after obviously doing a whole lot of odd jobs when I was traveling a lot.
And you were in Howe Sound, just to back it up a bit, you were in Howe Sound because you're half Canadian, half Swiss, and you were born in Canada, the western part?
Yeah, I was actually born in Ottawa, but I never lived there. All the time I spent in Canada in my life was in Vancouver and Victoria in British Columbia.
And then you went traveling, and then you decided to use the other half of your passport, your other passport, rather?
Yeah, it's certainly two great passports to have, incidentally, Swiss and Canadian, really lucky for sure. And so I did a lot of traveling, and obviously, I would have loved to make it pay, but it was difficult, and all these odd jobs were getting a little bit boring. I often likened it to being a drug addict, where in the beginning, the highs are really worth it. You're like, ooh, this is great, and then after a while, it starts to really sort of show how much of a toll it's going to take, because going back to odd jobs that don't thrill you, don't really fulfill you. After a while, you're thinking, I really have to do something else with my life. I can't keep sort of going off for a 2-3 month high traveling and then doing the rest of the year working a job that I don't really like. So that's really when I got into journalism, and journalism was great. I enjoyed it very much. It was very intense. It was stressful, certainly doing the daily kind of journalism we were doing at the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation, where you have to bring basically a story home every day. What a great way to train you for efficiency, productivity, getting on with it, and all the skills, the different skills you need as a journalist to make something happen. I mean, in a sense, you're a sort of one person team. You're a producer, you're an executor, you're the whole package. You've got to get it done. And that's been terrific training, and it certainly has paid off very, very much in my life as an entrepreneur, which I incidentally never thought I would become.
Well, we haven't even really said what you're doing now as an entrepreneur. So let's go back to 2013. We were both shocked when suddenly the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation was privatizing its English language national network. I know I had to beat a hasty retreat back here. I had some issues at home, and I did an architectural course. And you did what? You were in Lausanne, and you decided to, of course, stay.
Actually, I did what I usually do in these circumstances. I said, hey, let's go traveling.
Oh, did you? Oh, I had no idea. So you hit the road then?
Yeah, that's right. Well, with my wife, we decided that this was yet again a good opportunity in life to take off for a year. We were at the point where we were really thinking about having kids. So we thought, this may be a last hurrah. And we took off for an entire year. We did the whole of Eastern Asia, from Japan all the way down to Indonesia, some of it by bike. We did all of Japan by bike. That was a fantastic trip. And again, really loved the lifestyle. I did do some video work, which helped to launch the company afterwards, because what I did, and this incidentally is a very interesting idea, and I suggest this to anybody who's looking to put a foot in various worlds that traveling can provide, such as photography, writing, or video, but certainly approaching NGOs. I did this approaching NGOs and saying, listen, I'll do this for free. I'll go to your projects. I will do a report. I'll film, I'll do interviews and everything. I'll cut it all for you, put it all together for you. And in exchange, I just want free room and board. And this gave us some amazing opportunities in places where we would have never had access. And we saw sides of countries we visited that we would have never seen had we not had these opportunities. And so it was a real win-win, because the NGO called IUCN, International Union for the Conservation of Nature, got a few good little packages. Obviously not super pro at this point, because I was still starting off in video. But they got good stuff out of it, and I got a career launch, because when I got back, I thought, well, what am I going to do with all this? And I thought, I think there's a possibility here of making a living doing video in Switzerland, and so that's how it all began.
Oh my goodness! And talk about the perfect tag for you, intrepid.
Yeah, well, I was certainly more intrepid doing this than I was as a reporter at the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation, I would say.
Okay, yes, so then you took all that, and that was your calling card. Were some of these videos that you did in very much in wonderful barter mode, to keep you guys in money to facilitate your traveling. So when you got back, what year was that? And then when did you formally become the founder and chief of Smart Cuts?
Well, when I got back, it was the summer of 2014. And the first thing I did was to basically clobber together a logo based on elements that I had from having collaborated with people previously. I won't go into the details, but never mind. And then I sort of got a website going. And this leads me to one of the real keys of the success of the early days of Smart Cuts was to realize that a lot of services, most services, in fact, that didn't require a physical presence in a country, you could get online via websites that provide freelancers. And people are willing to do this stuff for you at prices that you could not necessarily afford in your own country, namely Switzerland, which is a very expensive place. And so I got a person in Turkey to do my first website. He did a great job and started to open my eyes to a lot of the potential for this. And I followed up with that with a team further out east who was doing SEO for me, search engine optimization. And it was still in the early days where this was still okay to do, and Google was not really catching necessarily that sort of technique as being not optimal for great content. And so it allowed my brand name, my company, to be fairly quickly high up in the rankings when people search for video production in the area. And that obviously got me a few early mandates, and that was key. But certainly, Susan, the whole way I launched the business could never have been done even 10 years before, because so much of the way I managed to put things together depended on resources that I found online. Now, obviously, you have to have the capacity, the motivation, the focus, the drive to do a lot of research at night, read up on this stuff, learn, test, try, fail, start again. But the point is that all of this stuff is available. As you know, you're also learning about this stuff, right? With some video editing yourself, I think. Huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to move things onto YouTube. I mean, 2 years ago when I started the podcast, people said, you are really missing when it comes to discoverability. And I know that, but there's so much behind the scenes, so much post-production, even for a little podcast. And then I always want to get on to get the next guest because I'm curating a body of work that's very specific to my curiosity and my editorial nose. So it just becomes, I need to do probably a little bit more of what you did and get online and take advantage of the help that is out there. That is, let's face it, more affordable than London rates and for you, Swiss rates.
Yeah, although, I mean, admittedly, it is a lot of time and effort to get it right. And this, I realize now, almost 7 years down the line, in the beginning, I was doing all right. I thought I was very proud of myself for what I was able to put together as video. But now I certainly realize that a lot more goes into great video than being able to shoot and edit. Obviously, there's many things I've learned over the years. And honestly, at this stage of the game, I'm no longer really in production. There are people who do this better than me that I have not hired who are doing this, for the company.
There's a point, and I just want to establish now, just to put some context around you. So it was the summer of 2014, and I know from our earlier chats before we opened the mics up that, you just mainlined the internet for 3 to 6 months, teaching yourself everything you needed to know to get going and to use your skills to get bigger. And now you're a company of 10 people?
Yep, exactly. Company of 10 people, yeah. And basically one of the key moves we recently made, which is what helped to double the turnover last year despite COVID, and which is now propelling us to probably growing even more this year, is building a large, fully green screen, 360 green screen production studio, soundproofed and the whole 9 yards here at this end of the Lake Geneva, where that kind of service is hard to come by. And there's a lot of demand. And I've got to say that one of the keys to the success of Smart Cuts has clearly been to have been located in an area where the economy is booming, and there's many wealthy multinational companies that can afford to do high-end video and that need the service, notably in English, in an area where English is not the mother tongue. And this all has helped, obviously. There was all these factors really played in. But then, of course, that has to be combined with an ability to take advantage of the opportunities that come your way.
Well, I want to walk that back a little bit because I want you to talk us through some of those opportunities, because I know you, Lucas. You say yes, and then you figure it out. Is that how you went from job to job to job and
I did.
established your reputation?
And that's why you can see that I've also got the results. It certainly put a few gray hairs on my head, but it's been worthwhile. Yeah, listen. One of the first great opportunities I had was through basically a personal contact. I was asked to do the live video production for a international piano competition. And it was hair raising, really. I mean, I had very little experience, and I had to get this thing sorted out in a few months. At least I had a few months. But again, it was just about going through all these video tutorials on YouTube, reading up, how people put the setup together, ordering kit from Amazon. It's just really kind of shaking the whole internet coconut tree, to get all the stuff I needed out of it, to put this together and do some testing all over my apartments. I had cameras in the kitchen and the living room, running with and learning words like SDI. What is SDI? Well, it's video wire. I didn't know that before, but I bought these spools of SDI, connected the cameras to the computer, to the mixer, to this, that. See, when you do this kind of thing and you're not experienced, you don't have years of experience, there's always going to be some things that you didn't quite think of. As Al Capone said, no matter how well you've planned your heist, there'll always be something you've missed. And certainly that was my case in this competition. But overall, we pulled it off more or less. I hired a few freelancers to do the camera work. And, we really did okay. We made a few errors, but obviously we learned from that. And we were able to build, obviously, on that. Once you've done something like that, people hear about it. You can put it up on your website. And one of the next things, Susan, and we spoke about it a while back, was the time where I got a call. I was at Geneva Airport, and I got a call from a surgeon at the University Hospital in Lausanne. And he said to me, "We need a video team to film open heart surgery in 2 weeks. Can you guys do this?" And as you said, I said yes. So
my heart just stopped then. My heart just stopped. Amazing.
Let me tell you, it was an amazing experience. We had we ended up having a camera basically dangling. Well, not dangling, but we had security, but a camera, sitting on a kind of what we call a jib, right above the guy's open heart. They opened the rib cage. The heart was beating. And the camera's looking in there, and we're projecting that image live to an auditorium next door and internationally, because there were surgeons elsewhere looking at this procedure, a new procedure to bore a hole into the necrosed part of the heart with the heart beating without stopping the heart. That was the innovation. And so we really literally saw this guy drive a piece of metal into a beating heart, which is honestly something that very few people get to witness. So it was
unbelievable. And you got that. Was that just getting to the process? Was that an SEO hit?
Yes, I think they found us online. Indeed, they found us online. And, again, this is one of the interesting things is that, obviously some clients are more worried before a production, and they will ask more questions and require more references and samples. But some really just want to get the job done, and somehow they go on faith. And this is where being a confident person that inspires confidence, then you often you earn this trust that you may or may not deserve, but certainly then the onus is on you to get it right. And I did everything I had to make sure it went well, and it was a great success. I got a great reference letter out of it, and it's on our website. And obviously this kind of thing, well, this led to us having mandates with Medtronic, the big international medical devices company based here in Switzerland. And so this is the kind of thing, obviously then it goes from one to the other, and the more big references you have. But initially it really is that kind of luck of the draw where you don't have much to go on. You have to just make the most of every little thing you have. And there it's good salesmanship. It's about being able to really sort of talk people into knowing that if they work with you, they're going to get something good. So
have you ever had to say, we can hear now, I know you, so I can vouch for the fact that in real life, Lucas Chambers is really charismatic. People would say I stormed around like a bitch a lot of the time because, I was in a funny part of the day in the end. I got off drive time and I did 4 hours of radio midday. So the morning man would come and park at my desk and start to want to do a post-mortem on his show. And I'd be looking at my watch going, really, you got to move on now. And so I would kind of shove him off the desk. Whereas you always seem to have so much time to shoot the breeze with people and do your job. I was always amazed at that. You're very charismatic. So your personal style, I'm going to not go out on a limb and just say that has a lot to do with your success.
Yeah, I mean, without wanting to flood, it no doubt does have, a part. I think it's just about being charismatic, being confident, being able to talk to people honestly too, and just to sort of make them feel that you're a reliable person. And I think that honestly, I do think that it's the kind of thing that unfortunately is hard to learn. You can't learn that. You can learn about technicalities, you can learn about procedures, you can learn about a lot of things on YouTube tutorials, but this is the kind of thing that you either have or you don't. And it's true that if you don't, then you're better off finding somebody that does, that can then be that person, that front man that you need in business, because really you do need that. And these are the people that are in sales and marketing. And so I had that, and I ended up matching with a bunch of technical guys, camera people, who then were doing a lot of the production, and I was, sort of getting the mandates type thing. Now, in the beginning, obviously, I had to shoot with them. There was no their work could not support someone like me full time, not actually producing. And that's the interesting thing about a company initially, is everybody's about production, but little by little, production starts to be able to afford the extra services.
Well, I imagine you would have to buy in a lot of new kit as well. So the capital outlay, I mean, to do something like, what did you call it, the jib, with the camera right over the beating heart? I mean, was that a capital outlay that, I guess, of course, with a huge teaching hospital, you were able to build that into the price?
Yeah, well, this is also part of what made this business venture possible, is that video has changed so much, as most of the viewers know, is that nowadays, you can do good video with relatively little equipment, whereas about 20, 30 years ago, you had to be a team of 5 to 10 and have a truck. Nowadays, all of this stuff has become much more affordable, much more effective, for much more bang for your buck. So I was able to put up the money, and obviously having some money up front was necessary. But honestly, I was very careful, and I built the business almost a traditional way, where I didn't borrow a whole lot of money and then get delusions of grandeur and start renting out offices and things that I didn't need. We stayed very trim, and we really just purchased what we needed when we needed it. And most of the time, the equipment was financed by the mandate that was coming up. We knew we had this mandate, we had little time. So that's where I really appreciate the fact that a lot of this stuff was quickly deliverable. This would have been a lot harder if I were based in Ghana, for example, or places where you have to wait a lot longer for the equipment to come. Being in Switzerland obviously made this much easier, where you could order and more or less 2 to 3 days later you had it, so that you could get on with it and be prepared for the mandate. So that's really how I functioned. And each time the mandates got bigger, more demanding, we were able to afford more expensive, more professional equipment, and we would learn about it and learn to master it, and therefore raise the level of video production.
And when you say we, initially you had a couple of freelancers. When did you find that you could have the confidence and the trust in certain individuals to hire them on full time and really bring them into what would be the Smart Cuts team?
Yeah, well, obviously, the trust, the risks. It's in the beginning, you just make do with what you have and you hope for the best. And I was lucky to fall on relatively competent people. I probably could have found better, but I certainly could have found worse. But in the end, they were also learning and getting better. So we kind of grew together as a team. And I think that the key thing was that they were motivated. They realized what they had. They thought to themselves, okay, here's an opportunity for us not to have a job that we don't like and have to sort of trudge every morning back and forth. And here's a guy who can perhaps, make it happen for us, even though we couldn't sell this stuff, but we can actually do it. So let's get together, let's make it happen. They made a lot of effort to learn, obviously, to keep up, to get better. And so that was key. And I was lucky to land on a couple of guys that were basically willing in the beginning to take cuts in their, in their wages, go for a couple of months without necessarily being paid less sometimes. There has to be that understanding, I think, between partners in the beginning when you're putting a business together, because you simply can't go on hiring people at a full wage and guarantee them that they're going to get that money, because at that stage of the business, it's really month to month and hand to mouth, and you just don't know necessarily how much money you can have. So
you found people that weren't risk averse, people that just thought, I like working with this guy, I want to build something.
Yeah, they had personal circumstances also that allowed this. I mean, obviously not everybody can afford that, and they did. They had a little bit of money on the side from different things. So they were able to do that. And then, yeah, but the recruiting is a good point, Susan, and it's been a big question. It's something that I now really feel like I haven't always done very well. And it's more pertinent at this time of the business where now we can't afford to be picking out the right people and paying them a proper wage from the get-go. And what I'm still doing, and I'm still doing wrong, I think, is, well, up to now, I would say, is tending to pick up, whoever's around and makes a good impression. But I think that at one stage, you have to go beyond that, and you have to really think, okay, I need professional people here. I need people that I know will do the job well, because picking the wrong person is as anybody in business will know, it's a heavy blow to a company. It can take so much productivity out of the workflow, and it can have a big impact. So
well, have you done that? Have you hired people in it? I'm just thinking for everyone else who, we all know that setting up on your own, it is not a snap. Even if you don't have then, is it 10 other people plus you? Even if you don't grow to the size that you are a small business now. You've got employees on the payroll that rely on you and the rest of the team to get the work in. Have you ever called it so wrong that you've had someone through a trial period and you've had to say, look, it's just not working out?
Not through a trial period, but we recently let somebody go that had been working with us for a year and a half, because at one point I just realized that, the efficiency wasn't there. This was a very meticulous person that liked to work thoroughly. And initially I thought this would be good. But after a while, I realized that this is a person that was just costing us too much compared to what she was bringing in. She was just far too thorough all the time, just overly thorough for no good reason. And this is the kind of thing that's very hard to tell in an interview, right? And even on a trial period. When you're busy, and again, at this stage of a company, you don't have the luxury as the director to go around and kind of keep an eye on what people are doing. You're just, you're still wearing a number of hats, and you're still working full on, nose to the grinder. And so that's one of the issues, is that you can't necessarily keep up with what's happening. You're counting on everybody. And at one point, you start to realize something's not working. And obviously, the feedback from the rest of the team, too, you're getting a sense that this person is not working out, right? But here's the point about this stage of a company, which is interesting for people in terms of the reward you get out of joining a small team like this. Is I think that if it's well run from the get-go, you because of the nature of the business, as I said, the director and the management, they basically don't have time to micromanage you. It is a company that by default will require you to be very autonomous and responsible for your own thing. And I think that's really nice for people who want that kind of feeling. They don't want to be in a department fulfilling a function. They want to be given responsibility. They want to be able to prove themselves, and they want to have lots of opportunities to grow fast. And that in a small startup company is in a way, it's kind of a de facto situation.
Yeah, you have to find the people that have that personality, nose to the grindstone, but also work to the definition of a role laid down by you. You are this cog in the bigger wheel of Smart Cuts, and I need you to perform. And obviously the person you had to let go, she wasn't, I suppose, meeting deadlines and causing too much friction within the team. And then you have no choice, do you, but to say, okay, we've got to move forward, so bye-bye.
Yeah, and it is very difficult, because it's true that when a team is small like this, there's obviously lots of personal connections that get created. And this person notably was somebody I knew as a friend before. So it is difficult, because it's true that it's not just like saying, okay, we need to cut 50 jobs here, just spread it out through the departments as you would in a big company. Here, everybody knows each other a lot more. And when somebody is let go, it's obviously more dramatic. But at the same time, you've got to make it work. And one of the things that I'm very keenly aware of is the fact that as the head of the company, you're responsible for everybody's welfare, everybody's pay at the end of the month, and everybody's dreams of being able to live off doing something they like to do. So you don't want to screw that up for everybody. And so it's your job to make sure that you call the shots that have to be called. And that's it can be a difficult part of the job, but it can also be very rewarding. I find it rewarding, because you are the captain of the ship. You have to have a broad perspective, and you have to sense what needs to be done and then do it, whether that's pleasant or not.
Are there any other, Lucas, areas of unpleasantness that you've had to learn the hard way? Some rough patches where you've had to really talk to your wife, talk to your friends, maybe a mentor. Do you have a mentor? Someone that can be a sounding board, who can help you sort out big issues?
No, sometimes I wish I did. No, I can't say that I really do. I mean, different people in different ways, perhaps. Yeah, getting support on different aspects. But I would say that the thing I found the hardest, and this mostly recently, is just the demands are so huge. And when you do have the responsibility and want to live up to it, not only at work, but in my case, I have two small children, so at home as well. At one point, it starts to become humanly almost impossible to just get it right for everybody all the time. And that can be tough. And you have to be very careful not to burn out, because it's very easy to just feel that, you can just simply never stop. And you do have to know what priorities to respect. And that's hard. Setting the right priorities is hard when everything seems to be a priority. And the pressure I have found is difficult. It's worth it, but it's been hard. And I've managed to hold on. I've managed to keep it together. But certainly the last 8 months have been very wearing for me. And that this kind of passage in life is definitely, you have to be really ready for it. And I think that for anyone that's got issues unresolved, that are dealing with other problems in their lives on the personal front or otherwise, don't go there, because this will require every little ounce of your effort and of your energy. So you need to make sure that everything is clear. And I was very fortunate that the family life was good, that everything was good inside here, and that I was able to devote therefore all my focus and my energy to making all of this kind of stick together. But obviously, when you're juggling 1,000 balls a day and people keep throwing them into the mix, you're going to drop a few here and there, and you just have to simply learn to accept that and the fact that it's okay. You just keep going. And the main thing is to have that perspective about the fact that this is not about all the little battles. It's about the war. And, in the end, if you can win the war, if you've lost a few battles, well, there it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine the challenge is immense. And your kids are little ones, aren't they? I mean, diapers are still in the house.
Yeah, diapers are still in the house. Yeah, my little boy, Gary, is almost 2. And Charlotte is 5.5. And yeah, they're doing very well. They miss their daddy sometimes, but honestly, I'm really away far less than many parents, I'm sure. I don't travel a lot, for example, and I think part of what I was saying before about being able to not sort of overdo it and not go into a burnout is also about having certain limits. And I do not tend to work till 10 o'clock at night, and I do take my weekends off. And I think that even though that's the temptation as an entrepreneur is huge not to do that. It's huge to sacrifice your family and your friends and just keep working in the business, because the work is never over. And when you're full of motivation and you feel that things are not moving as fast as you'd like them to move, it's such a huge temptation to just work around the clock. But if you do, I think you're making the wrong call, because ultimately in the long run, you're going to burn out, and you're going to waste more time by burning out than if you pace yourself and you take the time off and take the time for your family, which is obviously one of the ways that you can restore your energy and your well-being.
And I remember you were a runner, so do you build time into each and every day to get out for a run, to clear your head and keep yourself in maximum Lucas mode?
Yeah, well, this is it. Sports is a part of it too. I've always been active. I've never been into a specific sport. If I had to call one of the sports my sport, it would be ironically weightlifting, bodybuilding. I've been doing it since I was 15, even though you can't tell from my build. But I've never taken steroids. But I've gone to the gym. The gym is because year round, rain or shine, you can go and you can do it, and it's your thing. You do it in your own time. And it is true that doing that at noon, in the middle of the day, break up your work day, get out. Get your head out of the computer and out of the problems that are constantly coming your way, and to oxygenate the body and to really I guess also endorphins. Who knows? I mean, it's a big cocktail, but certainly I can say that staying fit has no doubt been part of the cocktail that has allowed me to bear the pressure and to keep going all the way along. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to be the master of your own workflow. And I think initially for some entrepreneurs, the work-life balance just gets blown to bits. And you're toiling in front of your laptop and doing the research. And as you say, burnout. I mean, was that ever something that, cuddled up to you because you weren't making the right decisions about your priorities and you had to step back and reflect and take stock and change your behavior?
Well, one of the things I think is interesting is I think if I hadn't had other lives before this life, I might have been more prone to suffering the negative consequences of heavy duty entrepreneurship. But having had other lives, I've always been aware throughout the whole process that ultimately this is a bit of a game and it is not the be all and end all. There are other ways to be and to live, and that I don't need to succeed at this in order to live a happy life, that I can envisage failure and go back to other things in case. So I think being aware of that, being just conscious that there are other options, and that there is another world that's perhaps even more important, such as family and friends. I think that's important, because I think otherwise you can get lost in the whole thing, for sure. Yeah.
What are your dreams, your ambitions for Smart Cuts in the future? Do you want to keep it small? Do you want to grow it, make it a franchising operation? Or you're happy to just tuck in Lausanne, be the only show in town, one of the only shows in town, in your corner of Switzerland?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that question, Susan, because it wasn't long ago I was reflecting upon the fact that I do the contrary to what a lot of business gurus advise, which is to have a plan and know where you're going, have a strategy, because otherwise you're never going to make it. And actually, I don't do that. I really don't do that. I have from the very beginning just basically gone. I mean, obviously, the goal has always been to succeed and to have more clients and therefore more business and therefore being able to pay myself a better wage. And that's ultimately been the goal, is to be able to make a living doing something that I find exciting and rewarding. And therefore, I've just gone with that, and I've adapted to whatever demand sort of came my way. And that's still the case. For example, now, because of COVID, it's all about virtual events, and we're shifting gears here, or not shifting gears so much. We keep the video production going, but we are, we're building a team to really develop the whole virtual events service in our studio. And there you go. Now that's going to go ahead, and we'll see where it takes us. I feel that obviously, we have goals in terms of knowing, okay, we've got to achieve this in order to be able to provide that service properly. So that we do, but sort of deciding how far we want to take it, how big we want to become, and all of this. That's, to me, that's just an open question. We'll see how it goes. We'll adapt as we go along. If the demand keeps growing, I'm happy to keep growing, as long as it doesn't start to ruin the company culture.
Yeah. And I loved when you talked about the company culture before we opened the mics. You were saying one of the best things you did too was be completely open about who was earning what, including yourself, so that people were invested. The people that you brought on could see, you're not taking home a lion's share and exploiting everyone else. It's a tight team and everyone knows their value.
Yeah, this was born out of necessity in a sense, because when you're three guys, making a go of it, obviously, you can't pull wool over anybody's eyes, and you have to be, and you feel that, everybody's doing this pretty much the same amount of work. And so it made sense for us to just say, hey, listen, we'll pay ourselves the same wage. And then as we started to grow, it became a little bit, ridiculous that somebody totally new in the team that needed training on this and that was going to be paid the same as myself, the director, who had all the experience and who was, dealing with much more important things with bigger responsibilities. So we decided, okay, we can't keep the wages equal, but we can keep them transparent. And this was put to the team, because I really have gone with that technique in mind, is just to basically consult the team and try to be as democratic as possible with decision making. I think that goes a long way to keeping indeed the motivation of the team and giving people that sense of ownership of the company, which I think is one of the key elements of driving motivation, is that when people feel that they're making this happen for themselves and for all of the team too, then, that motivates. And so, obviously the more choice they have, the more influence they have in the company, the more they'll feel that way. And so we decided, transparent. We all know how much we earn. And that way also, it really does make you justify the wages. I can justify to anybody in this boardroom right behind me, if they come up and talk to me and say, hey, why am I earning this and he's earning that? But I can say, well, this is why, we know, and we can explain it. And, it's working really well so far. I'm not saying it'll necessarily be the model that'll work all the way along, but there you go. I've adapted, just like we've switched from being equal to now not equal but transparent. Who knows? Maybe sometime and it's interesting to realize why certain companies do things, because as we go along, we're like, okay, now I understand why it's done this way in big companies, because, it has to be, or whatever. But there you go. And speaking of motivation, I just want to sort of say one more thing about that, is that it's been interesting, the process of becoming a director, which again, I never thought I would be, and having a team like this, and trying to figure out, well, how do you deal with productivity? Because that really is a key thing in a company as you start to grow, is that, people come in and you're paying them, and if you're giving them a lot of freedom, and this is very much in the zeitgeist now with working from home, it's basically you're trusting these people that you're paying, that they're actually pulling their weight. And it is an issue. And I think I've gone through different sort of strategies and different reflections about how you can best make sure that this is the case. And ultimately, my conclusion is that really the best you can do is to make sure that they are indeed motivated, because trying to do it by condign, trying to, sort of keep an eye, spy, all the rest of it, it's ultimately going to backfire on you, and you're not going to get out of it what you want. Because if people feel that they're not trusted, ultimately they're going to take their share back, and they're not going to give. You have to be trusting, and if then the people take advantage of that, then that's when ultimately at one point or another you're going to realize that you're going to know, and that's when you can say, that's it. We gave all the trust, you broke it, you're out of here. That's basically how it works.
No, absolutely. I mean, you're a straight shooter, and it sounds like a lovely place to work, provided you do what you've been hired to do. So, what's the best thing, would you say, about Lucas Chambers, the 2021 version, having taken your shot in 2014 and built it into the company it is now?
What's about me, or about my circumstances?
No, about you. I mean, you've done it for yourself. You're continuing to grow the business. You've taken your shot. What would you say to others who are maybe on the fence? They think they've got a good idea. They think they want to redeploy their skills, especially as we come out of this pandemic or start living with COVID. A lot of people are going to be forced into leaving whatever they were doing before the pandemic hit. Well, they might just be filled rigid with fear and not know which way to go and trust themselves.
Well, as contrastive as it may seem, because as you can see, I'm optimistic and enthusiastic and dynamic, but I'm not one of those who will go and say things like, if you dream it, you can do it. You can do whatever you want if you just put your mind to it. No. That's not true. My life experience has shown that is not true. And I think sometimes it's disserving people to make them believe that. I think that people you have to sense it. You have to have flair. You have to just, kind of I think a lot of the decision making in my process with building smart cuts has been a lot about letting the decisions be made rather than deliberately making them. I knew sometimes that I had to decide about something. And I sometimes I was tempted to decide, but more often than not, I postponed decision until somehow it became clear what needed to be done. And I think that deciding about just the question you posed, whether to jump in to do it, to go for it, take the risk. I think I would advise to go with that. Just give it a little bit of time, suss out, maybe try a few things, see if the demand is there. Demand is key, I would say. You've got to make sure that the demand for whatever you want to do is there. Don't start feeling that if you just push and do and build it, they will come. I mean, in the end, I think that, you've got to get a sense that there is demand, that people do want this, because otherwise you're going to put a whole lot of effort and you're not going to get anything out of it. That's kind of how I went into it, is because, I didn't sort of decide, I want to do a business. What can I do? How can I make money? What happened is that I was getting constant requests for video production. People were saying to me from different NGOs, "Oh, we heard you're a VJ, a video journalist. Can you do this video for us?" Blah, blah, blah. And so this is it, is I think, if you've got a sense that what you might want to do, or even if it's not what you want to do, but there are people saying to you, "Do you know anybody who does this?" There you get this sense of, there's a business opportunity here. There's something to be done.
The demand punched you in the nose and led you into your business. Well, that's fantastic.
Well, this is it. I mean, I'm not a businessman at heart. So obviously for me, this happened because it kind of fell into my lap in a way. And okay, so I recognized it for what it possibly was, and I seized the opportunity and I made it happen. But I'm certainly not going to say that, if you believe it, it's going to happen. I think that, I could have definitely, gone down and crashed. Who knows? I think you just have to be attentive. You have to open your eyes. don't believe in mysticism and sayings and things like that. Just be pragmatic and see how things are going, see the way the wind is blowing, how you feel about things. Does it seem to be promising? Does it seem to be working? Try it out for a while. Now about stick-to-itiveness. Well, one of our colleagues, Susan, who worked with us many years too, he worked with me a little bit at the beginning of Smart Cuts, and he used to say, there are only two real skills in life. It's patience and perseverance. And there is some truth to that. Obviously, when you set up your business, you don't expect it to happen overnight. You do have to be patient. You do have to believe in it for a while. But I think you also have to have a plan B and be ready to pull the plug. If you say to yourself, listen, I said this to my wife a few times. I said, I'm pushing 50, and if by the time I'm 50, I'm not able to bring in this much money at the end of the month, I think it's time to pull the plug, because I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life for such little pay. There are other opportunities around here. But there you go again, Susan. This is it. That's why no sort of broad brush advice can be given, because I'm in an area where I could have found work for better pay. But some people aren't. And there it changes your circumstances. If you're in a place where it's build it or die, well then go for it and go for it all the way. But it just depends on what other opportunities you have, what other skills you have. There's no easy answer for everyone.
No, it's everyone. It's the whole package, you and what your ambitions are and how you can manifest your personality and your own patience and resilience and your skills. And as long as it keeps lighting you up, you will do this for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly for me, I'm enjoying this, and I'm enjoying the management aspect. I'm enjoying the challenge of building this. It's creative. New ideas come in. You meet people. You've got obviously being able to sort of do all of this. It's so much more exciting than having sort of a repetitive executive task where you just perform a function somewhere. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to keep going. There's no doubt about it. But, ultimately, I've got to admit that, if I could if I could retire to next year, I wouldn't say, God, I just love my job so much. I want to keep going.
Yeah. Like, well, knowing you'd keep your hand in some way and you'd get the income going. This podcast goes out to more than 100 countries. Are you available for work? And what's your website? And are you active on the socials? Where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, well, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, obviously we're one of these services when we do video production. It's not necessarily easily exportable. So I would say for that end, it's not necessarily the right choice for people abroad. But certainly for people outside Switzerland, we do animation, and we have worked for the British Columbian government, for example. And so, for animation, reach out to us by all means, and also for creative consulting and for virtual events, which can possibly be run, from a distance. There's definitely options there. You can see all about that online at smartcuts.ch. That's the what would you call the ending of websites for Switzerland. And there you've got all the information you need, and we'd be very, very glad to help out for sure.
Yeah, I must say that when I first moved to Switzerland, what's this CH bit? I mean, unless you live in Switzerland, no one ever knows what that stands for.
No, it's true. It's interesting. I think it means Confederati Helvetica. The Helvets being the Celtic tribe that inhabited this area when the Romans, and the Confederati, absolutely. Well, the Confederation, they got together basically to resist the various empires. It's really actually a very interesting history for anybody listening. The history of Switzerland is fascinating. And it has led, I've got to say, I think, to one of the more mature forms of government that exists in the world today. And I think a lot of people miss something, not knowing about the way the Swiss government functions, because I think that in an ideal situation, most governments would look something like this. It's a permanent representation of the interest groups of society, rather than being one interest group that kind of wins it out against the other for 4 years or 5 years or whatever.
Although they could get the referendum participation numbers up, let's face it. They always seem to be so low. And I used to just think, well, it's great, this type of democracy, but who's involved in all of that? More people need to be drawn in to making the decisions. But anyway, that's a big thing.
It isn't so much that thing of the regular voting about certain topics, which I find is the most powerful feature of Swiss politics. It really is more the fact that the people who call the shots are a council rather than one person with a cabinet. And that council is representative of the different interest groups in society. So they're constantly having to compromise. And when they decide something, it has to be a kind of compromise of all the different people, the different interest groups, which is why, everybody feels represented and things work. People stick together here, despite the fact that there's 4 different languages in the country and that it should have fallen apart.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, if we could import that to the UK just now, I think we'd have some applause that we would both hear at the moment. Lucas Chambers, Managing Director, Founder, CEO of Smart Cuts. It's just been such a pleasure to be back in touch with you and to present all of your entrepreneurial insights to the audience of The Big Middle. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Susan. It's been great seeing you. And I really do hope that we get you over this end of the channel. Come and see us in Switzerland when we can travel again. It's really been fun. Thank you.
Can't wait. I'd love to meet your team. I'd love to see your expansive studios and the monster green screen that I've seen online. So all the best. And thank you so much for being you, Lucas, and being my taking your shot candidate. We're going to be doing a lot of these in the future on The Big Middle. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for your generous donations. You can head to my website, susanflory.com, to figure out what the heck I'm talking about and to maybe click the button and have a dedication for yourself. It's all very much appreciated. So that's it for now. We'll see you next time.